All right, music fans, welcome back. It is I, Dave, the real music observer, observing real music in real time for real people just like you right there, and just like me. Um, I guess a quick point of housekeeping. I don't know. I'm just doing videos, man. Uh, I just want to say this about my social media presence. I can't be everywhere all the time. I did a video yesterday explaining with some specificity about what's going on behind the scenes with me and right now with this one particular person who, uh, I had a relationship with on pretty much on Facebook more than anywhere else on the Facebook page, who had just launched into me about certain things and called me some things that I got to tell you, uh, I wasn't prepared for, and it's just a sad thing. So and if it continues, there's going to be blocking, there's going to be reporting, all the things that I've promised before, because my sanity is more important than making this one individual happy. Okay, and I can't go through my life trying to please everyone. So sometimes you've got to just please yourself. You know what I mean? Was it Rick Nelson that said that? Garden Party, right? All right, so I want to talk about Boston's debut album, my favorite album of all time. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Boston's debut, indisputably, in my estimation, the greatest rock album ever recorded. And by the way, good enough on its own merits that Boston should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Yup, there's another band should be in the Hall. Based on their first three albums, they should be in the Hall of Fame. Now, again, you may say, well, their second album was a huge disappointment, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Yeah, it sold half as many copies. The record label is pushing. This guy Schultz, he's a genius. He wants to take his time. He doesn't want to be pushed. Now, granted, then some lawsuits happened because he wasn't working fast enough, and then he had to leave CBS and go over to MCA for Third Stage. And the stuff after Third Stage, with the exception of Boston's very last album, the one they did, I think, in 2015, was it Life, Love, and Hope or something like that? That's actually a pretty decent record. But prior to that, they were, I think, in a bit of a funk, creatively speaking. And of course, not having Brad Delp anymore, although Tommy DiCarlo doing a fine job out on the road and sounding great and looking a tad like Brad now as far as his facial hair and his regular hair. It's a little weird, and I did a video about that. But let's get back to the first album. Genius. Absolutely. This is a start to finish record where every song, all the tracks, got significant radio airplay and still do. You lead the album off with More Than a Feeling, Peace of Mind, Foreplay, Long Time, Rock and Roll Band, which I'm from Cape Cod, so we killed that because it actually mentions Hyannis. Okay? Cool. Smokin', Hitch a Ride, Something About You, and Let Me Take You Home Tonight. I mean, there are no duds. It's just, and all of these songs, not only are they not duds, but every one of them is pure ear candy. Schultz had this recording process, which I believe it was John Boylan was the producer, who kind of mastered it and produced it. But between the guitar sound, between Delp's just clear as pure as the Driven Snow lead vocals and high register with all of that purity and all that sincerity, I just don't know what album is better from start to finish. And I'm a Journey fan, I'm a fan of a lot of different bands, but this album broke all kinds of new ground. And we're talking 1976 on top of it. Technologically speaking, it's a decade ahead of anything. Now, did it have a 70s feel to it? Lyrically speaking, and yeah, it had a vibe from the 70s, but certainly this album could have been made in the 80s uh, and beyond, because just the complexity of it, but also, you know, what's great about the debut is it has an innocence to it. It has a fun to it. The band later explores some, serious topics, and they get political, corporate America, and it's like, really? What happened to, smoking? You know what I mean? It just have a good time. Let's have fun. Even their second album, you had tunes like Party. I mean, the band in on third stage, right? You still had a remnant of the first two albums. You still had the blueprint. It's when we get all like serious and get into these topics, and also musically not as creative. Now, what was great about the debut, though, is like many debut albums, when bands are trying to make it big, they've got this backlog of material that literally, in this case, went back to about 1969, from what I've read. Tom Scholz recording and getting these guys together, and what was it, Mother's Milk, I believe, was the name of the band they had come up with, and then they decided to rename the band Boston. The producer, I believe, decided that, or somebody higher up, corporate executives. And look, this is funny because their first album talks a lot about getting signed to this major label deal. Rock and Roll Band is the song I think of. And then they have all these legal problems and troubles after that. So maybe you don't sing about that stuff. I don't know. Schultz being a perfectionist. And some people, I'm probably going to do a video specifically about Brad Delp. Because I think Brad is another one of these guys, unsung great vocalist, who, by the way, if he were in a band that produced music more regularly, I think he'd be right up there with everybody else on the list of great vocalists. His suicide, obviously, raises some questions. It's more than a decade now that he's been gone, and everybody in the world said he was the nicest human being on planet Earth. So we'll have to explore that a little bit. I've read some things about that, but the bottom line on this is Boston's debut album is my favorite album of all time. And it's just a perfect album. There's nothing wrong with it. And if you're a rock and roll fan, if you're a fan of mostly upbeat, fun music, great production, great vocals, great guitar work, Barry Goudreau all over this album, and Tom Scholz is a genius. You can't ignore that. He's a smart guy. He might have been a little too smart at times, and a little too picky, and a little too just, what's the word? I don't know, a little tough to deal with, I guess, and we'll explore that in other videos, but I just wanted to make it clear, Boston's debut album is my favorite album of all time. I'm Dave, and this is The Real Music Observer. We'll be back observing more real music in real time for real people, just like you, and just like me. See you then.